What is the meaning of life? We've all asked this question at one time or another, but I have a question that I think you might actually find more useful. Let's dive deep together. It's time for Real Talk. What is the meaning of life? This is a question that all of us have wrestled with at various times, but I want to present to you an idea today, a concept that has been immeasurably useful in my life by reframing this question, what is the meaning of life, with a little bit of a different question. This is episode number 1 of a series called Real Talk, where I try and unpack these questions that we have in life and business that you really can't fit into a reel or to a TikTok or a YouTube short. Anything that's micro content, it's really hard for us sometimes to conceptualize and contextualize what it is that we're consuming as far as the content is concerned. This first episode, the question I want to present to you today is very, very simple. Is instead of asking what is the meaning of life, what if we ask the question instead of how do I create meaning in life? Let's dive in. So when we reframe what is the meaning of life and we actually approach it through, again, a different context, we look at it through this question of how can I create meaning in my life? What happens is we actually remove ourselves from this pressure that a belief that we carry has caused. So our belief system, right, the beliefs that we carry, typically on a root level, a base belief, it originates from what many would call our primal brain, that is oriented towards self-preservation and survival. So the beliefs that we take on about higher powers, about the world around us, about our families, about the work that we do, they're simply beliefs that first and foremost are centered around us preserving ourselves and surviving. So when we think about this and we think about meaning, right? What is the meaning of life? The interesting thing about meaning, again, is that its origin is always in beliefs. So I put out a TikTok that was around this topic of when it's raining, we all, depending on the context, are going to label that as good or bad. If you're having a backyard barbecue, or say that you're planning a fun day outside and it's raining, your label, the meaning that you give to that situation, the rain, is that it's a bummer. It's sad, it's frustrating, it's irritating, it's not what you wanted. We end up resisting reality. The reality is it's raining, we didn't want it to be raining, and so the meaning that we give it is that it's bad, right? Whereas if you're a farmer and you're wanting to grow your crops, the meaning that farmer might give to rain is very different than this person over here. So the meaning that we're all creating is very subjective. That's number 1. When we start to realize that meaning is subjective and we look at our beliefs in the context of what is the meaning of life, and we strip back to simplicity and think, okay, well, actually the beliefs, the core beliefs that I carry, they typically center around self-preservation and around my survival. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the most useful to create the results that you're wanting to create in your life. So again, if we look at this question, what is the meaning of life? And we reframe it to how can I create meaning in my life? You almost absolve yourself of this deep-seated need to answer the question, what is the meaning of life? Because now you are the one who's actually defining it, rather than looking outside of yourself for something to give you an answer, which again, this is a question that we've wrestled with for all of recorded history, that when we can step away from that and we start looking through the frame of how can I create meaning in my life, we start asking more useful questions like what is useful about this and what is not useful about this. And so you start to live life through a very different frame, your perspective shifts, and you create a new paradigm, a new set of beliefs that instead of resisting reality when it's raining, right? Or when it's sunny out, or when somebody says something to you that upsets you, when you have, problems at work or problems in your business with your spouse, all of these things that we are ascribing meaning to, we simply reframe it and we look through the lens of how can I create meaning in my life? What this does is it causes you to stop living in a reactionary state that is always emotionally charged, trying to defend yourself, trying to self-preserve, trying to survive, and you actually start being able to almost in a healthy way, you detach from that moment and you can say, what is the meaning that I want to give this? This is also, when we don't have time to go into this video, I'll probably do a follow-up to this. This is also how we can escape a victim mentality. Because instead of thinking that life is against us and giving it meaning that feels like we are on the defense, we start to decide to give it a different meaning. And for me, what that looks like, and I hope that you'll adopt this well, because I'd love your thoughts on this if you've actually used this, is when you have a seemingly negative situation, you actually reframe it and you get to define the meaning of that negative situation. When you get a fight with your spouse, when your kids aren't listening to you, when your boss says something that hurts your feelings, when any number of situations, when Mother Nature doesn't cooperate, we actually free ourselves to step back, to love what is, the reality of life, which increases your peace, your joy, your contentment, all of the things that we're looking at as far as our emotional and mental health and creating a life of fulfillment, of joy, of happiness. All of it ties directly to how much we are crystal clear on the meaning that we are giving things. And so I hope that you find this useful. If you did, consider subscribing. Feel free to share this if it is. I think that I'm going to create a series here called Real Talk. I feel like these are topics that we need to dive into more. I'd love your opinion on this as well. And if you have questions, drop them below. I'd love to. I can't always respond to everything, but I will do my best to respond. And it also gives me ideas for other videos. So thank you for being here. I hope you found this useful. If so, let me know. And the final thought that I'll leave with you is this. This is the final, we'll call it the final takeaway. The final takeaway is understanding that when we stop giving so much meaning to the question, what is the meaning of life? We free ourselves again from this restriction, this resistance that we've placed on what's possible and the potential in our lives, because again, we are no longer looking at an answer that we believe that we need in order to find meaning. And instead, we recognize through the creative ability that we've been created with, plus our imagination, the possibilities are limitless and we are free to ascribe meaning however we see fit. And when you start looking at meaning through the frame of, if I define this with this meaning, what is useful about this and what is not useful about this meaning that I'm giving this situation, it will start to completely change how you see and experience life. Fam, thank you for joining me. Be blessed and never stop becoming.